Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So we have some more games with Ignister coming at ya today. Man, I am still so excited about playing this deck. This deck is so much fun. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love playing this deck. That's probably pretty apparent from the last couple of videos I put out, and I guess also the fact that I'm already making another video where I've been playing this deck. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. I really just think, like, thematically, and in terms of its name, and in terms of what it does, the Arrival Cybrse at Ignister is just like the coolest boss monster ever. It's funny because like every other deck I do, I feel like I try to be a little bit more objective, or like talk about like its power level, its place in the meta, like what, like how to play it. But every time I get to this deck, I can't help, I just gush about how much I love it, because I really just do. And the response was pretty awesome, honestly. You know, sometimes when I play like less than popular decks, I see that reflected in the views. Not that I'm complaining about that at all. It's always just about the fact that people are viewing at all. But I was really surprised that a lot of people were really into the Ignister deck profile. I was like really jazzed about that. So I hope it's at least partially because like how much I love this deck just comes through whenever I talk about it. So yeah, like I said, this deck is still I think still very fun, and I think still very good as well. It's going to be, I think, moving forward, still a pretty decent rogue deck. I have not yet updated the build for the post ban list, so you will still be seeing 3 Crossout Designators in this iteration. I don't even necessarily think you have to play 3 Crossout Designator in this deck. It might not even be right to play 3 Crossouts anyway. You probably only need like 2, but yeah, I will definitely be playing this deck post-ban list again. I just haven't, I've been testing other decks that I think are going to be more popular and or meta relevant, just to make sure I have my basis with those before I move on to other decks like at Ignister here. But we're still going to be seeing some pretty solid gameplay here from the end of Season 8 with this deck. And yeah, just gonna look forward to hearing me gush about how much I love it more, because God, this deck, like I said, is so much fun. And I do hope to feature more decks like it in the future. You know, I've seen a lot of people say they appreciate that it's not always about, because like I will admit, you know, I'll be the first to admit even that I definitely have a meta competitive focus on this channel, just because that's what interests me, tends to interest me, is just more competitive focus, like gameplay and deck lists. And I just think that the meta game and the idea of a meta game is really fascinating, and I just think it feels good to be playing like at a high, just like I said, at such a high power level. I just tend to, in most games, not just card games, but just games in general, tend to have fun playing with things that are like at a high power level. So, but it is nice to come to a deck like Ignister. And Ignister is like, I still think it's a very solid rogue deck. Like, I don't even necessarily think it's like a bad deck at all. But it's still nice to be playing like a more rogue deck, just something that's more like the fulfillment I come from playing it. Obviously, either way, whether it's a meta or a rogue deck, does come from just having fun, but it's a different kind of fun. You know, this is more of like a I did it kind of a fun. That's more of like the meta fun I have, whereas this is more of like a wee kind of fun when I play this deck. So if that makes any sense. Yeah, so like I said, I haven't changed the build yet for, you know, the current as of when I'm recording this ban list. I think this is still a fairly solid iteration. We will work on it moving forward, as all this deck really loses are the Crossout Designators. I talked in my ban list like prediction, or not my ban list prediction, but my like meta prediction post ban list video, that like, you know, the concept of different decks being affected by losing the Crossouts in different ways. This deck I'm still new enough to that I'm not quite sure how much losing Crossout will affect it. It is a fairly combo based deck, so I could see it being a little weaker as a result, but I think overall it's going to probably just keep its same solid rogue status here in the meta. So alright, as always, let us go ahead and break down the build card by card, and then we will move forward to some gameplay. So we are playing 1 Effect Veiler, 1 Hiyari at Ignister, 3 Maxx, 2 Achichi at Ignister, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Bururu at Ignister, 3 Pikari at Ignister, 1 Doyon at Ignister, 1 Danmari at Ignister, 1 Gatchiri at Ignister, 1 Nibiru, the Primal being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 3 Cynet Mining, 3 I Met You. I've been told this is just pronounced I, like that's like you just kind of enunciate the I a little bit more. Fa.I.ghting Spirit, that actually makes that much more pronounceable. We are playing 3 Ignister A.I. land? Oh, island, I get it. I literally just now got it. 3 Ignister Island, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Crossout Designator, 1 A.I.ddle Reborn, 2 Forbidden Droplet, and 2 Infinite Impermanence. Down here in the extra deck, we have 1 Wind Pegasus at Ignister, 1 Light Dragon at Ignister, 1 Link Spider, 1 Linguriboh, 2 Dark Infant at Ignister, 1 Cybrse Wicckid, 1 Update Jammer, 2 Splash Mage, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Dark Templar at Ignister, 1 Fire Phoenix at Ignister, 1 Accesscode Talker, and then of course, we have 1 copy of the Arrival Cybrse at Ignister. Alright, now that we have covered the deck list here, let us now move on to some gameplay. Alrighty, our first duel of this video is going to be against Adventure Virtual World, so this will be, I guess, a nice kind of a sign-off to that deck. As in its current iteration, I mean, the deck is still, I think, playable, but definitely not going to be doing all the same ridiculous stuff. And yeah, we open a pretty decent, I guess, hand here. We have the Crossout Designator for backups, and of course we have all the Ignister cards we could ever need. I'm definitely going to let this Ash resolve because we already have the Pikari at Ignister in our hand, so we don't need to worry about that. Achichi not resolving. We're definitely more concerned about this Dark Infant resolving. So just in case they have a Veiler or an Imperm, I wanted to leave the cross out here. So they don't. We get our Ignister Island. I still can't believe I did not get that until I read it aloud just now. We're going to use that to summon the Pikari. I screwed up here, actually. I meant to add the I Meet You to search the Doyon, but for some reason I added the A.I.ddle Reborn here instead. But that's actually not going to affect our inability. It's actually going to be fine here because we opened Bururu at Ignister. So I guess technically I probably still should have grabbed the I Meet You to set up the Doyon, so that way the Doyon could have recycled. It would have been the I Meet You. What I guess here actually it ended up being fine because we were able to send the Doyon, and then we're going to end up being able to cycle the A.I.ddle Reborn. So I actually kind of accidentally made the right play here. I didn't mean to. It wasn't a mistake that I searched the A.I.ddle Reborn, but then I guess I just realized after the fact, I actually kind of just realized now that I didn't even need to because I opened the Bururu. So, in a lot of ways, I guess I should have just not said anything and been like, yes, this is the correct play in this scenario, but whatever. I'm not gonna, I want to be transparent with you guys, I'm not gonna pretend that, it was a genuine, mistake on my part that happened to be the correct play. I feel like I do that a lot sometimes, but, no, I guess as long as you make the correct play, does it really matter? In any case here, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go into the Wind Pegasus now. We're gonna make the 5,000 attack Arrival Cybrse Ignister. A lot of people pointed out, because I said in the last video, oh, you don't necessarily need 6,000 attack, but a lot of people made a very good point that I overlooked, which was that 6,000 attack Arrival Cybrse beats over the 5,300 Accesscode Talker, which is definitely a frequent enough occurrence that I think it is worth it to try for a 6k Arrival Cybrse if you are able to. I think maybe if I had searched the A.I. Meet You and actually done it right, I could have set that up. I think I could have actually, now that I think about it, but in any case, most of the time, yes, 5 or 4k will be enough, but again, people did point out something that I did fail to think about, which was the 5,300 Accesscode Talker. So setting up the 6k setting up the 6k Arrival is still going to be something you want to do if possible. Alright, so they're going to start setting up their adventure line. One of the things I love about this Arrival Cybrse is that, I don't know, in so many other decks when you have your boss monster up, you still have to, it's still a negator or something like that, so you have to kind of, think about, what your opponent's doing and consider, I still need to figure out when to disrupt them. Arrival Cybrse can just kind of, chill. It's what are they really going to be able to do this thing? As my opponent is doing their adventure and virtual world stuff, I was initially kind of, a little antsy, but it's what are they really going to do to it here? I mean, of course, there are outs, right? I feel like most decks can figure out a way around Arrival Cybrse. I don't know if I can tell you what my opponent's is off the top of my head, but I don't know. It's one of those cases where it's again, you can, for the most part, not necessarily and not always, but for the most part, you can kind of just coast and chill once you got your big Arrival Cybrse out. That said, you do still have to think about how you're going to end the game, right? Because the Arrival Cybrse by itself is not necessarily enough to end the game. That's most often going to be following up with the Update Jammer access code play, so we do still have to figure out how that's going to happen here. My opponent does have the Shen and the Adventure Griffin up. Adventure Griffin, I've never called it that. The Griffin Rider. Well, yeah, we'll just Crossout Designator this Maxx here. They're actually going to use the Griffin Rider on the Crossout, so I'm just going to chain the Droplet here. We don't get to send the Crossout that's on the field because of Shen, but we can just send the one that's in hand. It's not that big of a deal. So yeah, we do have to consider the Shen and the Griffin Rider. I was actually planning on just using the Arrival Cybrse's effect on the Griffin Rider, and then using the Droplet on the Shen, but we can just do it this way too, since our opponent activated the Griffin Rider, and that is to, yeah, just negate the Griffin Rider, and then we'll blow up the Shen with the Arrival Cybrse. I don't think I actually needed to do this. I don't think anything going to my graveyard. No, nothing going to my graveyard actually affected this play. So now I think about it, yeah, we didn't even need to do it this way. But I'm going to link into, or not link, Xyz rather, into the Light Dragon Ignister. Now, I did say, I actually thought, I was thinking of a different game where we follow up with the Update Jammer access code play. This is actually one of the cases where we're not going to do that. I'm going to use the Light Dragon Ignister to blow up my opponent's board. Of monsters rather, and then use the Fighting Spirit and get back the Wind Pegasus and blow up their spells and traps. Now, I do know that my opponent has a Achichi out. That actually is another reason why I wanted to go into the Light Dragon, because as soon as the Light Dragon comes down, it's going to be able to prevent my cards from being destroyed by card effects by detaching one material. So, yeah, if I'd tried to go into the, again, sorry, I misspoke earlier, I was thinking of a different game. If I had tried to go into the Update Jammer access code line, I would have been stopped by the Achichi, so that's why I had to go for the Light Dragon line here instead. But yeah, my opponent's gonna try to use the Achichi. I can just detach one material to prevent that, and then I can just detach the other to, again, get rid of my opponent's board here. Now it's as simple as activating the Fighting Spirit, bringing back the Wind Pegasus, and then we can just battle for game. And then even if my opponent had somehow survived this, I could have just used Wind Pegasus to blow up their back rows, and they would have just been left with one card in their hand against not only still the 5k Arrival Cybrse, but the other cards on my board as well. So yeah, that is a pretty solid game there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. So this game is going to be against some kind of like, it's an interesting kind of like adventure stun looking deck, but we're actually not going to get to see pretty much any of that from the opponent. This is going to be a shorter replay. It's actually not even going to be a full turn one, but I wanted to show a line where we go, or at least set up for a 6k access, or not access code, Arrival Cybrse. So with this hand here, we can normal summon the Achichi. Opponent's got a Maxx, but we'll have the call by, it's fine. Basically, you kind of need to open, like, it's kind of hard to describe what you need to open with sometimes to get a 6k Arrival Cybrse, because it's most often going to be, in addition to Achichi or Pikari, something like A.I.ddle Reborn, the Hiyari, the water one, Gatchiri, the big earth one, not the level 4 earth one, or the lower level earth one, but the big one of 3k defense. But with this hand here, because we opened Doyon, we can actually get, basically, if you have an opportunity to get a free search as well, then you can kind of pull it off too. So because we don't have to search I Met You to search the Doyon, we can search A.I.ddle Reborn here instead, and that's going to be enough to allow us to go into the 6k Arrival Cybrse Ignister. So from here, we're doing pretty standard turn 1 stuff. If you want to know the full scope of what I'm doing here for the combo, definitely go to the description below, where you'll find a link to my combo guide for this deck for Ignister, and that'll explain what I'm doing for this part of the setup in a little bit more detail. But basically, it's not that hard to set up the 6k Arrival Cybrse. It's kind of the same setup as the 5k one. You just kind of tack on the A.I.ddle Reborn, or the Hiyari, or the Gatchiri, whichever one you have, as the extra 6th attribute, and then you can just link using 6 monsters. In that case, you would just treat your Splash Mage as 1 material instead of 2. Alright, so here we set up the Dark Templar, and I think at this point my opponent actually concedes here, but basically the way to set up the 6k from this point is to, well, we do the normal stuff moving forward, right, where we AI land for the Achichi, summon the Dark Infant, that'll trigger the Dark Templar, use the Dark Infant, move it from here to here, make it divine, use the Dark Templar to bring back 3 of these monsters, right, probably just like the Bururu, the Doyon, and the Pikari, right? And then we can go into the Splash Mage, and then from there you can throw on the A.I.ddle Reborn to get the 6th attribute. Basically just using, again, that extra card to get that 6th attribute, and then you'll link using 6 monsters, treating the link to Splash Mage as 1 material instead of 2. So, because again, if I recall correctly, Okay, maybe they let me go for a little bit longer than I thought, but oh no, okay, it was right there. They conceded. So I would have liked to have actually shown getting the 6k attack Arrival Cybrse on the board. I did try to play quite a few games to get a situation where that happened, but pretty much every time I got even kind of close, my opponent just conceded, like my opponent here did. So I kind of just had to pick the replay where I got the closest and then explain the rest of the play from there. But again, it's not that hard to set up, as you can see. It's pretty much the exact same play as the 5k Arrival Cybrse, like we saw in the last video. You just tack on that extra A.I.dle Reborn, Hiyari, or Gatchiri right at the end there. So, all right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. So this time we're going to be playing against Doomrod. It's actually been a while since I've played against Doomrod. I'm a little surprised, pleasantly so. What is the prequel meme? A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I don't remember the tone he uses. God, I don't even remember the last time I watched that movie. But anyway, so yeah, we got a pretty solid opening hand here. We open the Cynet Mining as well as the Ignister Island. So that's always nice to see. You get a lead with the Achichi at Ignister here. Opponent's got an Effect Veiler. I do have to Crossout Designator this because I don't have another Ignister monster in my hands, so I'm not going to be able to make plays moving forward. But they've got the Imperm as well as the Veiler here, so definitely going to sting there. Not going to be able to make really any plays moving forward, so this is why I like to have the one Veiler in the deck, is specifically as a Crossout Designator target. It's just like you never know, right? So here I'm just going to go into the Linguriboh instead of a Dark Infant and then just kind of pass, right? Because I don't really have much else I can do. And on the off chance that like my Linguriboh survives to the next turn, it might stop a back row, which actually isn't being the case. So my opponent just sets through and passes back to me. So now I'm very happy I made that Linguriboh. I'm also very happy I top decked this I Meet You. But to be fair, like this deck has a lot of one-card top decks that can lead into a combo. Like I could have topped the I Meet You, the Cynet Mining, the Achichi, or the Pikari, and pretty much had plays moving forward. So again, the exact reason I made the Linguriboh here is my opponent flips up an Imperm. I'm able to use the Linguriboh to negate that and allow my Achichi to resolve. And yeah, like of course it's because it's Neuron, but being able to play through like 3 different monster negates is just such a... It's why it's important to play, and I think it's why it's potentially important that the deck is losing the Crossout Designators there, is because it's very, very vulnerable to decks with like multiple forms of disruption, and especially with the Halcton line going relatively untouched moving forward, there's going to be a lot more boards with like I think multiple negations. I mean, not that there aren't a lot already, but I think we're going to see that being more prevalent moving forward. So again, I don't know, it's like I can see a world where losing these Crossout Designators doesn't do a whole lot to affect at Ignister, but I can also kind of see a world where it does. So I guess we're just gonna have to see as we play this deck next season, which don't worry, I do definitely plan to play this deck more post ban list. I absolutely adore this deck. So all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game here. Alrighty, this game is going to be against Adventure Phantom Knights, and very thematically enough, our opponent's name is actually Playmaker. So for those of you who don't know, in the show, the Ignister deck was used by the villain of Reigns, so the fact that we're dueling against Playmaker, the hero. Well, not the villain, I don't know. I haven't seen it, so it's also kind of spoilery. I guess I just won't get into it. In any case, they're going to go first and lead with the adventure line here. We got a very, very good going second hand here, leading with the Maxx and the Nibiru here, as well as a very solid play line for our next turn with the Pikari, the Hiyari, and the Crossout Designator. The Pikari and the Hiyari is actually more than enough to make a 6k, or rather, I guess is enough, with the Cynet Mining being more than enough to make a 6k Arrival Cybrse. But since we're going second, we're just going to go for the the access code OTK during our next turn, or during our first turn there, which I guess is our next turn as well, but you know what I mean. So our opponent's only going to have the adventure set up here, which is actually pretty lucky for us. And they actually, okay, yeah, they Griffin Rider here, that's right, because we maxed it. I thought that was going to end up being the case, because I didn't see it on the board, but yeah, they are still going to set up the Griffin Rider here. And actually, okay, so you might be wondering why I activated that Cynet Mining, right? Because I actually didn't need it to go into the Update Jammer into Access Code OTK, but I still wanted to get it live here, because I wanted to be able to imperm, or not live, I wanted to get the Cynet Mining down first, even though I didn't need it to go live. because I wanted them to play the Griffin Rider so that I could impermit. I, in general, was just trying to draw out any kind of response or negate. I've talked about this in the past, actually pretty recently, about this concept of affording your opponent the opportunity to misplay. So again, you might see that hand and be like, okay, I don't need to Cynet Mining, all I would discard is the Nibiru, and maybe I should save that anyway. And that's not an invalid way of thinking. That is a way you could definitely play that hand, but my line of thinking was like, my opponent has a back row and could very easily have like an Ash in their hand. I don't want them to Ash this Pikari at all. I would much rather them Ash the Cynet Mining, and if I'm gonna, ideally I'd like to win on this turn with the Accesscode Update Jammer anyway, so I don't think I'm gonna need the Nibiru at all moving forward. Also, given that my opponent has established a lot of their summons and the Griffin Rider, if I don't deal with the Griffin Rider and just pass them, without, you know, it getting shuffled back, right, then this Nibiru is not going to be able to do anything anyway because my opponent could just Griffin Rider it. So, in my opinion here, the best way was to, again, lead with the Cynet Mining, discard the Nibiru to try to provoke a response. And we did by the Griffin Rider getting put down, so now we can impermit, and we don't have to worry about it moving forward as a result. And we also still have the Crossout Designator for a potential hand trap as well. And again, you might even be thinking like, oh, well, you had the Crossout Designator, why do you still feel the need to bait stuff? It's because they might have multiple responses, right? They might have like an Ash and a Nibiru, or an Ash and a Maxx in their hand, or like another, like a, you know, a Call by and an Ash, or a Call by and, like, there's so many combinations of disruptions that any deck could have, that I think it's best to try to bait stuff, then use responses, and then just try to muscle through with your plays. That's usually how I like to do it with most decks, not just this one, just in general. So yeah, I'll get the A.I.dle Reborn here with the Pikari at Ignister, because again, I'm just going to go for the like Update Jammer Accesscode OTK, and if my opponent stops that, I can potentially continue plays with the A.I.dle Reborn here. So yeah, going for the Splash Mage, getting back the Achichi. Again, using the Pikari effect to make Achichi level 4. Not that I needed to make Update Jammer. Achichi's already level 2, meets the requirements for Update Jammer, but I thought if my opponent had like a Fog Blade or a Veiler or an Imperm, then I would want them to maybe think that the Pikari adjusting the level was very relevant to my play, and use that as a means of, like, again, just giving them the opportunity to misplay. Okay, so Accesscode's got to pop the back row, which turned out to just be a Shade Brigandine, so don't have to worry too much about that, as well as clearing off the opponent's board before slapping them twice for 43k for a game. Well, they concede before that's the case, but kind of ironic too that we're beating Playmaker with Accesscode Talker. Again, just given how the anime played out. But all right, yeah, so there is that game. We've got one more. Let's take a look at it. All right, last duel of the video here is going to be against Sword Soul Tenyi, which is kind of the new big bad, at least I think, moving forward, going to be the new big bad tier 1 deck that we're all going to have to play against there. But now we're going to take the first turn here. Our opening hand is looking really good. We've got the Achichi, the Island, the I Meet You, and the Crossout, so definitely lots of very relevant stuff there. Opponent's going to Ash the Achichi. I'm actually totally fine with that because I've got the I Meet You, but they also have the Maxx as well. That's a little less fine. I'm definitely going to want to Crossout Designator to stop that Maxx there. So again, yeah, because I have the I Meet You, I can still make plays. I'm going to have to get A.I.ddle Reborn, kind of like I accidentally did in that first game. I think I'm going to have to do that in order to continue to make my plays moving forward, but I was fairly confident that I could have let that Ash resolve, even if they didn't have the Maxx as well. Like, I was just planning on letting the Ash resolve anyway, so. Alright, yeah, I'm using the I Meet You to get the Pikari now, just to make sure they don't have something to, like, negate it, even though, again, I guess they already used Ash, so they wouldn't have another one, so. Now we'll use the Island to summon the Pikari. Again, grabbing the A.I.ddle Reborn with that. Now we can go into the Cybrse Wicckid. We'll use the A.I.ddle Reborn to put the Pikari in the Cybrse Wicckid zone. That'll set up the Bururu. And yeah, basically should allow us to continue on with our plays moving forward. Or would have been the case if they didn't have the Nibiru here. Fortunately, my opponent messed up a little bit here. They should have flipped their thing from auto to on, and then done this when the Bururu summon resolved. That way they would have cleared that off as well. Or I guess it was an add, not a summon, to be fair. So, all right, yeah. From here we're gonna go to the Link Spider. This is actually like one of the main reasons we have Link Spider in the deck, is to counter Nibiru here. And now we can use the island to summon the Bururu there. Basically, I figured from this point my best bet was just climb into an Accesscode Talker. This is kind of one of those games where I'm looking for people who are more familiar with that Ignister. If there was a slightly different line I could have done here, because going into the 5300 Accesscode here is like not that bad of a compromise play, given that my opponents only got 2 cards in their hand, well, 3 during their turn, and we also still have a droplet anyway, but I just wonder if I couldn't have made something like a little bit more robust, like something with like a negate or disruption effect, or just a slightly better effect here. So again, those who are familiar in the comments, let me know if this was like actually the best line I could have done here, or if there's something I could have done that would have been maybe a little bit better. But yeah, so they are going to lead with summoning Ecclesia. I'm going to, of course, allow that to resolve because it's, you know, got a quick effect, whatever. They summon the Moye, which I kind of figured they were going to go into anyway, so I'll just drop with that, sending the island on my field to the graveyard. Not just because I have an island in hand, but also Ignister Island has the effect to set itself in the graveyard as well. So at this point, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to just play out through the rest of the game pretty easily here. But my opponent's last card is actually the Long Yuan. Super unlucky for me, because now, yeah, they can pitch to Vishida, bounce my Accesscode Talker, go into Baron, set up an Omni-Negate, and now I'm just very awkwardly left with only the Ignister Island in my graveyard and in my hand. So, and given that they have an Omni-Negate, I'm probably not going to be able to play out like through their negate anyway. So, yeah, this game kind of turned around in 2 seconds against me, and of course, top decking the Imperm here, it's like, if this island had been like an I Meet You, a Pikari, or an Achichi, like, I could have had it here. I could have so, I don't know about easily, because we actually did play through a lot of our combo pieces and our access code already, but I could have had some kind of an out, but alas, does not seem as though they were fated for us, and this is going to end up being a GG from us to the opponent. So again, if I could have set up something different with that different than that 5300 access code, let me know in the comments, because I'm just still intrigued by that. I don't know if I'm missing something there, but all right, that's gonna do it for the gameplay. Let's go ahead and move on now to the outro. Okay, I want to thank everybody, as always, for watching, especially all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a lot, not only to me personally, but as a means of supporting the channel. Similarly, in terms of just meaning a lot to me and being good ways to support the channel, you could definitely subscribe there. And also, I love to hear from you guys in the comments as well. Like I said in that last game, I'm always open to suggestions and or good constructive criticism on gameplay and deck building. So definitely, especially if you're very familiar with Ignister, I'm still fairly new to the deck myself, so definitely don't be shy or afraid to chime in with that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. So without further ado, this is XLex. I'm signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.